Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy work day or evening now to attend this. We hope there's a lot of takeaways that you can get from this. So my name's Ellie. I am the Business Services Coordinator at Allerdale Borough Council. So I coordinated today's webinar, but it has been jointly planned and organised by Cumbria's Better Business for All partnership. Now, this is a partnership that encourages or enhances the relationship between local authority regulators and businesses in mutual benefit. We will be doing a sort of launch and a joint press release with all the local authorities in the county later in May. So for now, just do a couple of bits of housekeeping. If everyone could put themselves on mute, mainly just for feedback when the speakers are talking, you will get a chance to unmute yourself for questions, but just for now, if you could just stay on mute, that'd be great. This session is being recorded and it will be available on social media and our YouTube platforms as well. Two of my lovely colleagues, Julian and Deborah, are on the chat today. So any questions throughout the presentations, please do just ask. But we will have a section at the end. Should you sort of think of something at the very end, we can still get that answered. I'm not sure if it was people for this session, but we did get some pre-event submitted questions. So if they haven't been answered throughout the presentation, then I'll address those at the end for you all. And just finally, all our partners' email addresses are available throughout the presentation. And I've got a slide at the end with everyone's on. So please do use that. Please do follow up with things if there's something you haven't thought of. And I know Lindsay was saying that even from a session this morning, she already had someone contact her straight away, which is exactly what we want. So please don't be afraid and speak up if you need it. So I'm just going to let the last people in. And I shall share the presentation and we'll get underway. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so I will just introduce everyone as we go. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Jackie O'Reilly, who's the Public Protection Officer at Copeland Borough Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellie, and hello, welcome to everyone. What I'm going to do in this session is go through the roadmap summary covering changes that are coming through at step 2 and step 3. I'll talk through the 4 tests that the government are applying at each stage, and also cover some changes that are coming through for NHS test and trace. We'll cover information sources that all regulators use, and encourage everyone to make sure that you do contact your environmental health teams, fire and rescue, and all teams that you work with, because we're all here to help. We do know that everyone is having to adjust and make changes very quickly, and that sort of guidance and rules are constantly changing, and it has been amazing how much everyone has sort of just adapted to it and taken everything on board. So what we want to do is sort of go through, and I'll start off by just talking through what's happening at step 2. So this has been announced as coming into play on the 12th of April, and it's one of the 4 steps in the government's roadmap out of national restrictions. Some important things that are happening at step 2, and it builds on the small changes that were made for outdoor sports and more outdoor mixing. But at this stage, what we have got, and it's part of our gradual easing of restrictions, it means that all retail can open, that self-contained accommodation can open, hairdressing and barber shops can open. You've got indoor sports, outdoor attractions, libraries and community centres. And so just checking, there's a bit of feedback coming through, and I hope everyone can hear okay.
Yeah, I can hear that little bit of feedback. If anyone is not on mute, could you mute yourself now? It might be Jackie's, but it might just be with someone else.
Yeah, it could well be me. Sorry about that. Okay, so what is starting at this stage as well is that there will be a pilot of some larger events. There are no pilot events happening in Cumbria, but they are happening across the country, and the government will be reporting on those as they go through. For step 3, the earliest date that this can happen is the 17th of May, But by the 10th of May, the government will have announced if that step is going to be activated. Because behind the scenes, what is happening is there's 5 weeks between each of the steps. The first 4 weeks are spent reviewing and assessing the infection rates and checking that the vaccination programme is going as planned. And then that moves the government into looking to see if the tests are met to move to the next stage. So the tests that will be applied. Sorry, Ellie, could we just move on to the next one? Thank you. The 4 tests that the government apply to each stage is to check that the vaccination programme is continuing successfully, that there is evidence that vaccination is reducing hospitalisation and deaths in those that have been vaccinated, that infection rates are not surging to put a risk on hospitalisation rates, and that the assessment of risk taken in February has not been changed by new variants of concern. So as part of the lockdown, the government introduced a new set of regulations, which are now being referred to as the STEP regulations. And these set out the legal requirements for businesses and individuals. STEP regulations also amended existing details covering collection of contact details, self-isolation, local authority enforcement powers and obligations and undertakings. And as part of that, the government have had in place a series of 14 workplace guides that cover a range of workplaces from shops, close contact services, which are sort of hairdressers and beauty treatments, restaurants, pubs and bars guide. There's one for the heritage locations, and there's a hospital and guest accommodation guide. The guides are all there to sort of explain how different workplaces can meet legal requirements, and they sort of set out, they follow a sort of a set guide by talking through the roadmap, having a what's new section, details on priority actions, assessing risk, details on NHS test and trace, and PPE and face coverings. And each work guide also has a link to further information and links to the representative and trade organisations that have supported these guides. And in addition to these are also guides for education, wedding and civil partnerships, receptions and celebrations, and transport undertakings. For some workplaces, you may need to refer to more than one guide. The best way to get these, and there will be some links coming through in the chat, is to use the online link, because then you will always be having the most up-to-date version. When we were opening up after the lockdown last year, copies of the guides were printed out and shared with businesses, but they sort of quickly became superseded by new information, so we now are sort of staying with the online versions. But between each of the guides, there are sections that take you to links all through the government's website. So there's some very good links for the NHS test and trace, which we'll go through later on. One of the sections that is in all the guides is the priority actions for working safely. And this covers the COVID risk assessment. And in the chat, there's going to be a link through to the template for the Health and Safety Executive template guide and areas to consider when you're doing a risk assessment. The guides also cover the requirement for cleaning and hand hygiene, for face coverings, whether it's displaying notices or the requirement for staff to wear them, recognising that there are some exemptions. It covers social distancing and how you've got your sort of capacity and layout of your premises. It covers ventilation, whether it's natural or mechanical. The need to have NHS test and trace, and also how important it is to turn away people who have symptoms, and that includes visitors and your staff. Under the priority actions, there is also a guide for different workplaces for other things to consider. So, for example, the pub guidance talks about keeping the background noise level low. There really is bad feedback. But I will so, persevere and just hope that you can hear me.
Yeah, we can
So,
hear you.
yeah, great. Under the What's New section, there is a link to testing. And what the government there is highlighting the value of testing to the national sort of lockdown. The testing section has highlighted that in addition to the standard ways of getting tested if you've got COVID.
Have you got any other screens open, Jackie, or your phone near your laptop at all?
No.
I'm just thinking that might be it. No.
It's me because when I stop talking.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. Shall, I don't know how it is for everyone else in the call. I can either continue or come back through this later.
Should we try and come back later? I don't know if you just want to check any wires or something, Jackie. I'm not sure. Sorry, but I'll just go on to Stuart. If that's okay.
Of course.
I'll just flip through quickly. Okay, everyone. So we'll just quickly go on to Stuart Graham, who is a fire inspector at the Cumbria Fire and Rescue. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks very much, Ellie. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. There was quite a bit of feedback coming from that presentation. First thing I would like to say is obviously what I would like to give tonight is a bit of fire safety advice for business return and following the COVID restrictions. I would firstly like to start by saying that we at Cumbria Fire and Rescue Service would like to say we want to reassure the business community that we're here to help and advise. As the enforcing authority, we need to ensure that any responsible person still needs to keep people safe from fire. So I've put a simple flow chart together on here and it's just got a few basic highlighted areas. So any businesses that are starting to reopen or coming back to the fore, review your fire risk assessments. Obviously there's going to be some sort of significant changes, whether it's the way the staff or the layout of the premises. Obviously if the premise hasn't been trading for 12 months or more, the risk assessment hopefully will have still been reviewed as part of the business management plan. But if it hasn't, you know, let's get into your fire risk assessments, let's check them, let's make sure they're still current and make sure that your staff, whether they're new or existing staff, are brought to be aware of any significant findings. The risk assessment itself is a strange animal for fire risk assessments because in law it states that if you don't employ more than 5 people, it doesn't have to be written or the significant findings don't have to be recorded. However, if you're a licensed premise and that's for food, music, entertainment, the provision of dance, you must have a written fire risk assessment. Our advice would always be if you don't have the correct qualifications, knowledge, skills or experience, get a professional in. They're not very expensive and it does save you a lot of leg room and could be more financially beneficial in the long run to get a professional one done at the start. Looking at how your premises will operate, previous to COVID-19 restrictions, it would have just been normal. Now coming out, we're looking at alfresco dining, alfresco drinks, etc. So the premises will be operating slightly different. So go around, check your layout. There may be areas in there that could be susceptible to people that's maybe going to be just popping in to use the conveniences. For an example, where previously you would have had a full set of bar staff overlooking the entire bar area, you may now have staff that are committed to walking in and out of the premises. So you may want to look at any sort of slips and trips, hazards, and make sure that if you need to, there's sufficient emergency lighting provided, and ensure that maybe hazardous steps are highlighted just as a slips, trips and fall hazard. With the fire warning systems, and this isn't just predominantly for people where people sleep, it's for all public commercial areas. Fire warning systems, we would like to think that during the pandemic that you've still kept on top of testing the systems. However, we do understand it's been very limited to get people into service and test things. So please try and ensure that you get the right people in that's got the right qualifications to service and test your fire alarms, emergency light, everything, and make sure that you get these checked and that they're recorded. Premises, I've put a bit in here about compartmentation, and I don't want to sort of bore people too much with it, but basically the fire service would like buildings to be a series of boxes, and then boxes are generally constructed from timber with plasterboard on or brick with plaster. They then have a door fitted. It's either a 30-minute or a 60-minute, and we would then call it compartment. What we would like to suggest is that everybody looks through their buildings that they have responsibility for, especially with basements, to make sure that compartmentation hasn't been breached. So when I say compartmentation hasn't been breached, you should be checking your fire doors, you should be checking your floors, and in basements you should be checking the ceilings. We want to make sure that there's no fire can grow undetected in the basement and spread through the rest of the building through ceilings. So have a good look around your building, check your compartmentation, doors, etc. Obviously, with the COVID-19 restrictions being in place for over 12 months now, a brief interlude in the summer there, most firefighting media and extinguishers and larger premises that may have sprinklers really should be getting serviced. This is to obviously ensure that if there is an incident, that trained people of the staff or in general public, if they're trained to use them, can use them if a fire was to break out, but also to ensure that the passive fire protection, things like sprinklers, Jackie spoke before about ventilation, things like that, they're all brought up to speed. We really need to make sure that we're reopening the premises, but we're making sure that these premises are reopened and safe for the people that live, work and visit Cumbria, they're safe to enter. Please, on another note, check your escape routes. As Jackie mentioned in her presentation before about ventilation, mechanical and natural, we at Cumbria Fire and Rescue Service don't have an issue with final fire doors being left open, the ones that i.e. are on the outside wall of a building. But when you're starting to look at having cross-corridor doors or doors that protect compartmentation to protected stairwells, etc., that's when it's a no-no. An example of that would be if you've got a large hotel B&B and you've got two protected staircases, if you open the cross corridor door for ventilation, if a fire was to break out on the ground floor, that could compromise both protected stairwells. So just be careful when you're looking at putting these in place and opening doors. If need be, get a professional fire risk assessor in. They'll check these out for you and make sure that you're doing everything you can to that you need to. One of the other issues that I envisage moving forward that you'll come across is some of the staff may be new, they may not be familiar with the building, they may not be familiar with the layout or even the customers. So one of the significant findings going forward would be identify who's new and ensure that they get the correct training to show them what to do in the event of an emergency, how to summons the fire service, how to evacuate the premises safely and the customers, and where the rendezvous points are, and also who would be responsible for calling the fire service, because it's very easy for everyone to stand there and think somebody else will have done it. So it's important that responsible people put these measures in place. Two areas that I can put together here are record your findings and review your policies and procedures. It's good practice just to make sure that if you've done anything in regards to fire safety, then obviously you record it and document it. This isn't just good practice for yourselves, but it's good practice for when, if somebody like myself from the fire service comes out to do a risk-based inspection, you've got all the evidence in place to show what you've done to keep people reasonably safe from fire. The last point I would like to say is, please don't think that Cumbria Fire and Rescue Service are here to shake a big stick at everybody. We are a person, people, and what we would like to do is ensure people that we want to ensure that you're doing all you can to keep people safe, but also predominantly we're doing all we can to help you stay in business. Because if you spend all your time, trouble and efforts keeping people safe from fire, your business will suffer. So if you've got any questions or queries, Ellie's going to put up all the contact details at the end of this presentation. Please feel free to get in touch. We're not available 24/7. Predominantly office duty hours are 8 to 5. Fire services available 24/7, however. But if you've got any questions or queries, please feel free to get in touch. And I'm happy to take any questions at the end of this. Okay. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Perfect. We'll just move on to Janet now, who is the, let me just move that on, to the Revenues Team Leader at Copeland Borough Council, and she'll be talking through some of the business grants that are now available. Thank you, Janet.
Thanks, Ellie. Hello, everyone. My name's Janet Sinnott, and my job as Revenues Team Leader at Copeland normally involves overseeing the billing and collection of revenue due to the council. However, for the past 12 months, Revenues, Economic Development and Business Support teams have been tasked with delivering all council-specific business support grants. And collectively, councils across Cumbria have paid out just over £300 million in grant support since the start of the pandemic, which we know has been a vital source of support for local businesses. So for the next 5 minutes or so, I will recap briefly on the closed schemes. I will cover the restart grants available from the 1st of April 21, which is where the focus is right now. And I'll also cover the additional restrictions grant scheme, which is the funding that each council has for a local discretionary scheme. So as we moved out of lockdown last November and into the various tier periods, there were multiple schemes available. The one that we're probably most familiar with is the local restriction support grant for closed premises. So this was for businesses with a business rates premises that were forced to close. It's important to note now that all earlier periods up to the 15th of February 21 are closed for applications. However, there is one remaining period, and that's from the 16th of February 21 to the 31st of March 21. So this is a 44-day period, and you can still make applications with your local council until the 31st of May 21. So in simple terms, if the business is registered to pay business rates, has been forced to close by the government during the period, applications can be made until the end of May. So very briefly, the closed schemes are the local restriction support grant open. So this was the scheme for open but impacted businesses when councils entered into either tier 2 or 3. The government asked councils to prioritise hospitality, accommodation and leisure businesses that were open during this time, but naturally were suffering due to the restrictions in place. The closed business lockdown payment, this was a one-off grant of between £4,000 and £9,000 for all those forced to close when the January lockdown was announced. And finally, the Christmas support payment, which was £1,000 payment during December for wet-led pubs. So all of those closed on the 31st of March. And we move on now to what we hope will be a much simpler scheme to understand and for us to administer. So support available from the 1st of April 21. The first one is the Restart Grant Scheme. And the other available support is the Additional Restrictions Grant. This is the discretionary scheme that each council tapped into last November when we entered the second lockdown. I'll start with the Restart Grant Scheme, and businesses are placed into one of two strands. Strand 1 is for all non-essential retail businesses, and strand 2 is for hospitality, accommodation, leisure, personal care and gym and sport businesses. Amounts are based on the rateable value of the property. Start at £2,667 if the business is classed as non-essential retail, and you can apply for grants up to £18,000 if your business is within strand 2 and has a rateable value greater than £51,000. So the purpose of the Restart Grant Scheme is to support businesses that offer in-person services where the main service activity takes place in a fixed rate paying premises in the relevant sectors. So the business must be eligible for business rates and must have a business rates account number. The business also must have been trading on the 1st of April 21. For the purpose of this grant scheme, that means that the business is engaged in business activity. Examples of business activity are having staff on furlough, trading online via click and collect, managing your accounts, preparing for opening by implementing COVID safe measures. All councils must complete prepayment business activity checks before making payments. So unfortunately, this will delay the payment to businesses slightly. Councils across Cumbria will be making contact with eligible businesses over the coming weeks, and the option to apply will also be available for new cases. If you don't hear from your local council, just keep up to date with council website business support pages. And just moving on to the Additional Restrictions Grant Scheme. So all councils in Cumbria triggered access to this support when the lockdown effective 5th of November was announced. So for the first tranche of funding, councils received a one-off sum amounting to £20 per population head. Funding can be used across financial years 2021 and 21-22. The scheme actually remains open until the 31st of March 22. Each council has devised a local discretionary scheme. But in the main, it is for businesses that are not entitled to the mandatory COVID business support. An example of this may be businesses that don't pay business rates because of the way the valuation system works. For example, a bed and breakfast that will be paying council tax, or freelance businesses that don't actually have businesses registered to pay business rates because they operate from home, such as mobile, hair and beauty, or wedding and event businesses. In addition, government have said that councils can use this scheme to support those that are not forced to close, but they're still impacted because you're not receiving as much trade as you normally would. Councils received a top up to this fund when the lockdown was announced in January, and will receive a further top up to this fund when all earlier funding has been used. Councils have been given until the 30th of June to use all earlier funding. And just moving over onto the next slide, I've just included the contact details for both Copeland and Allerdale's business support teams. If businesses are unsure regarding any of the support, please check the websites, call or email the council via the contact details shown. Equally, reach out to the LEP, Cumbria Tourism, the Chamber, the Cumbria Growth Hub, because we are all here to help you, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. And I'm sure that people have some questions. Either put them in the chat and Janet will be able to answer now, or wait until the end. So I'll just move on to our brilliant business support network representatives today. So we'll just go from one presentation to the other. So first, it'll be Leslie Robinson, who is the business support manager at Cumbria Growth Hub. And then we'll move on to Lindsay Park from the LEP, and she is one of the business growth managers.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of Cumbria Business Growth Hub and the support that we can offer to you and your business. Cumbria Business Growth Hub is the umbrella brand for all of our business support, but we do actually have a Growth Hub project. To be eligible for support, businesses need to operate mainly with other businesses, not the general public, or be looking to develop the B2B side of their business. So we have over 35 business advisors based around the county who offer business advice. Many of them own their own businesses and have worked in industry previously to being a consultant themselves. The areas that we can offer support include general business support, so that it covers everything to do with running your own business. We have business planning, marketing, digital marketing, sales and pricing, supply chain, finance, funding and applications, HR, just to name a few of the areas we can support there. But we also have advisors who are specialists in areas such as manufacturing, hospitality and tourism, retail, food and drink, and social enterprises. We also offer fully funded workshops for eligible businesses. The next slide will show the workshops coming up, but we'll go on to that in a moment. We also have a part-funded subsidy, which offers support for specialist consultancy support. Again, I'll move on to a bit more detail on that in a moment. Also, Cumbria Forum is run by Lancaster University Management School. They are one of the partners on the Growth Hub. Again, there's a slide on that support there. And the Growth Hub website is listed on the slide you can see now. Included on the website, we have a COVID toolkit, which is regularly updated with information relevant to businesses. So there's links to relevant authorities, agencies, and fact sheets and information on there. We also have a Brexit toolkit. Again, that's regularly updated to keep businesses in the loop on what's happening with those. We have case studies of people who've received support that tells you, what we've been able to do for them and how they've benefited from the support on offer. There's a directory on there where you can list yourself and your business, and you can also list any events you're running yourself and links to other business support programs. We don't just advertise our own support, we refer into other agencies. So we work with schemes like Made Smarter, Digital Tech, Cumbria Manufacturing Service. These are all listed under the business support section on the Growth Hub website. We also signpost clients to other support. So some of our advisors work on multiple projects. They will refer clients into the maximum support on offer relevant to the business needs at the time. Next slide, please, Ellie. So we've got a couple of workshops coming up between now and the end of May. You'll be able to see the details there. We're also working on the plan for training for the next remainder of the year, the next 6 months or so. Those details
Sorry, Leslie. Just can you just unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Where did I get to? Right. So the option is to either attend a couple of workshops or 6 hours advisor time and a workshop to make up your 12 hours that's on offer. It's one place per business. And as I said, they're listed under the business support section. Once we've arranged the training, the details will be put on there for you all to see. Next slide, please. So this consultancy subsidy is 40% up to a maximum of £1,500. It's a really simple application process. It's only 3 pages. Basically, all we ask you to do is get 3 quotes for the work. You choose who does the work for you. All you need to do is send in the application and the quotes. The advisor can help you with the application process. It covers all of the areas listed on the screen there, as well as training that's not elsewhere funded. So if you can get training through another programme, we can't fund that. But if you can't, then obviously we can support that for you as well. There is a minimum project spend of £2,500 for us to be able to pay £1,000, and you get a maximum of 3 hours advisor time, with the subsidy equating to your 12 hours support. So that's an option some businesses like to take advantage of as well. Next one, please. So Cumbria Forum is a peer-to-peer networking programme delivered by Lancaster University Management School. They've been a partner on the project since we very first started in about 2009. It's an interactive session. At the moment, it is delivered online, but they are looking to restart the sessions face-to-face as soon as possible, because the main part of Cumbria Forum is a residential where business owners, managers get together, talk about their issues, anything they've got in common, anything they'd like to share with each other. So it's a really good way of developing relationships with people who you might not necessarily meet otherwise. So that's Cumbria Forum. And one of the final things I want to talk about really is we've just received some funding from Allerdale Borough Council to offer business support to businesses in the Allerdale area. Now, to be eligible for support, you've mainly got to be visitor economy, retail or personal services such as hairdressers, personal instructors, beauty, that kind of thing. The support that's on offer is twofold. So there's either free or funded chamber membership or business support, which includes the workshop, which is detailed on the screen on the 20th of April. So that's reconnecting with your customers face to face, which is important for everybody looking to restart and open the business. But we also offer one-to-one support after that as well. So you get some time with a business advisor, either the person delivering the training or any other area that you need some help with. So any businesses in Allerdale interested in that, please do get in touch with us. And I just wanted to give you an update of some of the things that we're on with really. We don't just operate Cumbria Business Growth Hub. We have a business support programme for businesses looking to start up or develop in the first 3 years of trading. We also run the New Enterprise Allowance Scheme in Cumbria, Lancashire and Merseyside. That's for people on benefits or existing self-employed looking to either start a business or develop the business they already have. We work with the Department of International Trade on exporting support for businesses. We have a GSK Enterprise Fund for businesses in the South Lakeland area looking to create jobs. We've just finished a peer-to-peer networking programme, which ended at the end of March, but we're looking again to work on that with Cumbria LEP when the new programme starts. We gave out £818,000 in a 6-month period with COVID recovery grants through the Kickstart Tourism and Small Business Recovery schemes. Through that scheme, we were able to help many more businesses than we were contracted to support, providing things like equipment, laptops, printers, anything to operate the business at home rather than in premises. We've been able to support new websites, social media support, search engine optimization, quite a ream of things we've been able to help businesses with. And thanks to the fact that people didn't take up all the money available, we were able to support more businesses. So the last thing that remains for me to say is, regardless of your size or sector, please do get in touch. We will be able, if we can't help, we'll signpost you to somebody who can. But in more or less cases, we are able to support, and that's what we're here to do, along with everybody else today. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And just finally moving on to Lindsay before we try Jackie again.
Thanks, Ellie. Good evening, everybody. So my name is Lindsay Park. I'm the Business Growth Manager at the Local Enterprise Partnership. My role essentially is working one-to-one with business owners like yourselves, so providing advice and guidance on a whole range of matters and issues. I put my contact details first, actually, for a reason for me that I think, as I said on the session this morning, for me, probably one of the most important takeaways from today's session is that as business owners, you understand that you're not alone. Wherever you are in the your business journey, that you understand that there are people here that can help. My role, and I guess with a number of the other business support organisations and the regulators, is that we have a good understanding of the local and national support that's available to business owners, and really help you to find out ways to access those. Within the LEP, we have a range of business support programmes that are available. What I thought would be helpful is to talk through some examples of the way that we've supported businesses over the last few months. For the next few slides, I'm going to talk through a range of different sectors and give a couple of examples of ways that we've supported businesses in each of those. So thanks, Ellie. So the first one that we're going to cover is the creative industries. We've been working with an animator who is looking to grow their market internationally. Spent a lot of time with them looking at which markets they're trying to reach, being able to give them access to some grant funding to be able to attend trade shows, as well as access to an export manager. So somebody has a really good understanding of trading internationally that can give them the support and guidance that they need to move forward. That particular business is actually incredibly passionate about growing opportunities for our young people. So they want to give our young people a better understanding of the creative work opportunities that are available to them within the county. So we've been able to make an introduction there to our careers hub, again, that's delivered through the LEP, where they are able to work much more closely with our secondary schools and colleges. Website designer in Carlisle, we have been working with, who's actually had quite a pure experience of recruiting over the last couple of years. They've had issues where they've been training people who've then moved on within 18 months of completing their training. And from the business owner's perspective, that's an investment that they've lost in skills, in time and in cash. So we've been working with them on programs like Kickstart, where they can have roles funded through government incentives, but also gives them the chance to build a sort of social impact on the way that they develop their recruitment policies. It's almost accept that people will move on, but they can be part of that journey with them. So next slide, please, Ellie. Yeah, so we've got some manufacturing firms here that we're working with, and a couple, as I say, that we've picked out. So precision engineering firm that were looking for funding to grow the business. They wanted to purchase a property, didn't know where to start. The conversations they had didn't really fit with what they wanted in terms of how they wanted to fund the purchase. We've been able to make introductions to some lenders who are now working with them to hopefully complete on their first purchase within the next few weeks. And that in itself gives them an opportunity to expand the business in a way that they couldn't in their current premises. In addition, we've made an introduction to Made Smarter, which Leslie referred to earlier. So they're getting some specialist support on innovation and also access to some grant funding to help them streamline some of their business processes. A food manufacturer that we've been working with was hit quite badly by the impact of COVID. A lot of the retail outlets that they were supplying had closed. So the wholesale side of their business has actually been quite badly impacted. Again, been doing some work with them around cash flow management and help them access some finance support, C-bills loans and some other finance products. And also looked at some R&D tax credits, and again made some introductions to some specialists that can provide some more detailed advice and guidance on that one. Next slide, please, Ellie. The visitor economy, again, a couple that I've picked out here. The hotelier that we've been supporting in the Eden Valley in recent weeks, who've actually been in a position where they've been thinking about the ways that they recruit. So they have had challenges with quality of candidates that have been coming through, and not necessarily getting the strength of experience that they were hoping for. So we've been supporting them to look at ways of looking at their current marketing processes, giving them some advice on ways that they can improve the ways that they sell the business to future employees as well as to future customers. We've also made an introduction into the University of Cumbria and one of the principal lecturers for hospitality. The business has a real interest in graduate recruitment, in growing their own staff, and giving people a sort of long-term career opportunity. So it's something that they're really interested in doing. And also some fully funded training through the Edge. So again, chances for their current and future workforce to upskill in a whole range of areas. And a local wedding venue that was in full shutdown, very limited access to grants by nature of the way the business is set up. We gave them quite a lot of accountancy support to help with some cash flow forecasting. So they had some longer term plans in place so they could have more meaningful conversations with lenders, rather than it being sort of piecemeal, you know, going back every couple of weeks, every sort of 5 or 6 weeks with a request for more money. With this business, we've also acted as kind of eyes and ears on additional grant funding. They found that they'd missed out on a couple of programs that they hadn't been aware of. And I guess with a lot of other businesses we support, we kind of take that view that we, because we have that good understanding of what's available, that we try and be proactive in letting people know when programs open up to the marketplace. Next slide, please, Ellie. Thank you. So this last one, in terms of some of the sector stuff, is retail. The first one, the high street business. It's a non-essential shop in the north of the county that's been closed for what feels like forever. Again, very limited access to grants by the nature of the way that they're set up. We've been working with them actually to try and access a small capital grant that will help as part of their reopening process. It's available through Carlisle City Council. So hopeful that will come through, and also working at the moment on some heritage funding grants to help with development of business of the premises that are operating within, which is grade 2 listed. So we'll see what happens with that one. And a food retailer that we're supporting, again looking to grow the business, and we're on quite a good growth trajectory pre-COVID. Have suffered really because of the impact on cash flow, and I guess those growth funds have been taken away from them, which has been quite commonplace with a lot of businesses we've supported over the last year or so. So we've been working with them again on accessing programs like Kickstart and some sort of follow-on programs, traineeships, apprenticeships, sharing details about incentives that might be of interest to them. And again, made an introduction there to the Careers Hub, and they're really keen again to look at ways that they can give back to our young people, help them understand more about the industry opportunities, and life as a self-employed. So that's those examples. I guess for me, it was really just a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the world of business support, to give you a flavour of the kind of things that myself and the team at the LEP and Leslie and her team within the chamber do day in, day out. So hopefully it gives you some ideas to think about for your own business, either where you are now, where you want to go to. And I think, you know, this last slide for me, just a couple of quotes that I picked up, some events from last year, right in the heart of the challenges that we've been living with. And I think, as I said right at the very beginning, what's really important for me is that people understand that we're here, you know, we champion your cause day in, day out, and we're here to support you. So please do shout up. Yeah, we're all here and happy to help.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you very much to everyone. Jackie, are you there? And do you think that your feedback has stopped? Because then I'll just stop sharing. I'll go back to your slides if that's possible.
Okay, I'm here. Let's give it another go. What I'll do is I'll keep the video off just in case it was all a bit too much, but I've done the classic log off, log on again. If that works. I can't hear any feedback, so it's a good
Sounds
start.
good. Let me just get.
So we'd got to the testing section.
We had, haven't we?
Let's go back to that.
That one. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just before technology got in the way and I started sounding very, very odd, probably sounded like some sort of Dalek character. We've been talking through the working safely guides and sort of saying at the beginning of each of those there is a section on what's new. So at the moment, the what's new bit is taking people to information around testing offers that are there. So in addition to testing if you have COVID symptoms, as part of the government's community testing, there is a new lateral flow test offer to employees with 10 or more employees, and previously the barrier had been sort of set at 50. What you can do there is register for test kits that will be provided free of charge, and employees can collect the test kits from their workplace and use them at home for up to twice a week. There is a requirement to register your interest for this, and it has to be done by 1 minute to midnight on the 12th of April. At the moment, it doesn't matter if your business is not open and trading, you're not sure when it will be, and you haven't got a plan for doing the tests. The important thing is to register by that date on the 12th of April to be eligible for the test kits. In addition to that, there are 11 community lateral flow testing sites across Cumbria. And then there is also the excellent workplace lateral flow testing that is administered by Cumbria Fire and Rescue and Cumbria County Council. But there's a lot of push on trying to have as much testing as possible. And the lateral flow tests are giving people a rapid indication within half an hour of your test results. So I just thought it important to bring that to everyone's attention. One of the other sections in the guide that is the new is changes that have been made to the NHS test and trace. So as more businesses open, it's bringing back into the need to have contact tracing so that if there is an outbreak or cases, they can be rapidly traced. The NHS test and trace has designated a certain number of venues that must display the official QR poster. This has already been in place for prior to the lockdown, but what has changed this time around is that all customers need to scan in, not just the one lead person in the group. Designated venues will also have to provide an alternative method to collect contact details so that those people who don't have a smartphone can still provide contact details. And if you're a designated venue, the recording of details will also need to include staff and their shift times and any visitors to the premises. Information has to be kept for 21 days before destroying it, and there is a link that's going to come through in the chat to sort of take you through the guide, which has information on the Information Commissioner Officer requirements and a template privacy notice. As things have changed, the format of the poster has changed as well. So the QR code that you may already have downloaded remains the same and is valid, but the posters have changed to make it clear that all people in a group need to either scan in or provide their contact details if you are a designated venue. So designated venues are highlighted in each of the Working Safely guides and through the NHS test and trace links, but they are the hospitalities that includes pubs, bars, restaurants and cafes, tourism and leisure, so it's hotels, museums, cinemas, amusement arcades and betting shops, close contact services for hairdressers, barber shops and tailors, and community centres. Where people have made advanced bookings, those details can act as the contact details, but it has to cover everybody in the party that are there. So just thought that needs to be included because it is quite a new thing for businesses. Then if we move on to up to date, we've had a lot of questions around what happens with outdoor hospitality. With this opens up on the 12th of April to allow the serving of food and drink, and for food and drink to be consumed in outside areas. Food and drink must be consumed while customers are seated. If the venue where the outdoor seating area is being used provides alcohol, even if the people are not ordering alcohol, everything must be done while the person is seated. So that's taking the orders and delivering the food. If it's a premises that doesn't serve alcohol, then customers can order and collect food from a counter, but they must consume the food and drink while seated at a table. Customers can use indoor facilities at those premises, but they're there to use the facilities, not to stay inside. So a lot of questions are being raised about what's going to happen if the weather turns or isn't as nice as you might want it to be. Customers can't go in and shelter from the rain, and if enclosures and areas are put up outside, they can't be what are classed as either enclosed or substantially enclosed, and that's following the smoke-free requirements for smoke-free shelters. But at the moment, this has been the area that we've been getting the most questions of. I think it might move on to NHS test and trace will be our next area of questions. The social distancing will still apply for the outside areas, and contact tracing will be required for the outside areas because pubs and restaurants are designated premises. So it's sort of moving us on to step 3. So right at the beginning, I mentioned that during the 5-week period between each of the steps, 4 weeks is spent reviewing the data, and then 1 week's notice is given as to whether or not the next step is going to be activated, because it has always been stated that it's the earliest date possible. So for step 3, the earliest date it can come into place is the 17th of May, and the announcement of moving to that stage will be made on the 10th of May. And at this stage, a lot of restrictions continue to be lifted and eased, and it allows indoor hospitality to reopen, organised indoor sport to open, accommodation, if it's not self-contained, to be opened, indoor entertainment, and there will at this stage also be a review of international travel. COVID safe arrangements will still be in place at this, so you've either got the rule of 6 if it's indoor, you've got an increase of number able to meet outside. The removal of COVID related restrictions will not happen until step 4 at the earliest, and that is on the 21st of June. So there will be a review of infection rates, how the vaccination programme is going from when step 3 is activated. So that's just a quick summary of what will happen at step 4, and then moving on to the information sources that we've put through in the chat and that are regularly referred to. So we have all the government's Working Safely guides. You can sign up to alerts to let you know when anything has changed. We've got the Health and Safety Executive. We've got a coronavirus information page, which includes template risk assessments. You've got your environmental health teams, Public Health England. As has already been covered, the Cumbria Local Enterprise Partnership have got a very, very good set of information where it's pulled all the different sources of information onto one page. And our Growth Hub has also got a great business COVID toolkit. So that's a quick summary, and I'm really sorry about the interference. I've completely changed my network connection as well, which I think is...
No problem. Thank you so much for that, Jackie. I'm just going to stop sharing that now, so everyone should be able to see each other. I appreciate it's 5 minutes to 7. I only saw a couple of questions being asked in the chat, so I just want to take this opportunity for anyone to shout out, please. I can't see everyone quite on my screen, so please just unmute yourself and shout out, and we'll hopefully get your question answered. If anyone has a question? No? Okay. I know we did.
Sorry.
Oh, go on.
Can I just ask? My name's June Weekly. I'm treasurer for a cricket social club, and I'm just interested in the lateral flow testing. I know it says employees, but the majority of the people who work for the club are volunteers. Would we be able to register for the lateral flow testing? Because at any one time, we could have over 10 volunteers working at the club.
Jackie or Gillian, could I ask you to answer that for June, please?
I can take that one. What I would do is, there is the link in the side. I would follow the link because there is talk about partnership groups being able to sign up. But if you're not able to do that, then you have got all the community locations. And what I didn't cover in the session was that they operate different parts of the county, but they work at the weekends and there are evening slots there. So that may also be really useful for people if you can't sign up to get the 10 employee part. There is a link, I think, Ellie, in the chat about the Cumbria County Council's link to the community locations. They're well spread out across the county, so that may be an alternative for you, if that helps.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jackie. There's no other questions. I just had a couple of pre-submitted ones that I just wanted to ask if if we knew the answer. If not, obviously we'll sort of follow up on that. Does anyone else have a question, or shall I just read these couple out? Okay. Just one of the questions probably to Jackie as well. The substantial meal rule, is this still in place when reopening on the 12th, if we know that yet?
No, it's not in place when we reopen on the 12th. Cheers all round, I think, for that one.
Absolutely. That's great. We just had a question about using toilet facilities, but again, that was answered. And I think the only other, they were all answered, which I hope was useful to everyone. Okay, so wow, very prompt, finished 2 minutes too. So I just want to reiterate that obviously all the email addresses, please do use them. You have my email address from when I sent you the Zoom link today. So if you didn't manage to get anything down this evening, then please do come to me. I'll be able to pass you on to the correct person. And I really hope that was useful. This has been recording, but I'll also send out the slides as well, probably by the end of this week. So you can always refer to those. So thank you so much for taking the time this evening, and best of luck with reopening if you are in April, and if not, then in May, and if not, hopefully in June. So hopefully we'll keep in contact. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.